Hello to all my viewers, this is Magicalamazing, and this is the second part of my PPSH 41 tutorial. This video is going to be on how I made the barrel shroud and the barrel. Now I began work on that big piece that'll turn into the barrel shroud and housing for the top of the bolt. So I cut out a piece like this. This is going to be the full length of the barrel shroud and housing that goes all the way from the muzzle to the back of the gun. Here I've measured on the piece and sketched in where all the holes will be on the barrel shroud. I then went ahead and cut them all out except for that one, which will be where the front sight attaches. The next step was to cut out these strips of uncorrugated cardboard. After cutting them in half and layering them to make them too thick, I came up with pieces like this. These will be used as reinforcement. On what will become the inside of that main strip, I begin gluing the pieces over the holes. Once the strips are all attached and reinforced, I cut out all the holes once more. Here you can see the holes in the strips on the inside. Next I cut out a little rectangle back there which will become the ejection port of the gun. Then, using the same method as before, I reinforce over that hole. Next, on what will become the right side of the top piece there, I cut out a shape that looks like this. This will be the channel for the bolt handle. Then, as you might expect, I'm going to cut out a couple more strips and reinforce the inside with them. Here you can see the entire reinforced piece. I left that one side there at the bottom unreinforced so that it will lay flat against the other side. Here's what I mean by that. When I fold the barrel shroud into the square, the holes are going to line up, but I only want them to line up enough to hold the thing together. Ensuring that everything fits together and lines up correctly, I'm going to start bending this into the shape of the square. The reason I reinforced it in strips is so that between the strips, where I'm gluing right now, would be easier to bend than the rest of it. So I use my glue gun to keep the pieces in a right angle, and I hold it there using my hands and a ruler until it dries. Once it cools down, the two pieces should stay in a right angle. I use the same method to glue it all the way around into the square shape it should be. At this point, it was time to attach the magazine well to the stock. Here you can see I've done that, and the magazine is inside of it. I just wanted to make sure that the magazine release was still working. After making sure everything was still working with the stock and magazine well assembly, I decided to see if the piece that I'd made, that is the barrel shroud and housing for the rest of the gun, is going to fit correctly, so I test it. This is the way that it will go on the finished gun. The gap here is what you cut out before and is going to leave room for the bolt handle. Now, sure that both of the main parts of the gun are fitted together correctly, I'm going to cut out a little part like this. This is going to be used to cover that little bit underneath the barrel shroud that wasn't covered before. I also cut a circle in a piece of cardboard and glued it on to close up the muzzle as well. Now we're going to start working on the way to attach the two pieces together. I then cut out and attached this rounded piece here, and this is only attached to the stock. This keeps the barrel shroud and cover against the stock, but also allows it to slide forward and be disassembled. I cut out just enough of the corrugation to fit the piece in snugly, but not too tight so it can be removed. Spent a little bit of time prettifying the back of it, closing up the big open space, added a little bit of a plate there with a screw in it, and the bump on top. These would all be used to disassemble the real gun, but they're purely aesthetic on mine. The barrel consisted of a rolled up paper tube, but there are a couple things you might want to take note of. I used a couple pieces of paper as spacers so that I could float the barrel inside of the barrel shroud. I measured the spacers in such a way that the front one would end up right underneath that part of the barrel shroud that does not have a hole in it, and the rear one ends up just behind the last hole. The square part on the end just fits snugly in the shroud behind the barrel. After fitting the two main parts of the gun together once more, I drilled a hole where you see directly through both pieces. I then very tightly rolled a piece of paper that's going to be the pin that fits inside the hole to keep the two pieces together. The pin should fit through so it is very snug, maybe a little bit tighter than you think it should be, but it needs to stay in well. I left a little bit of overhang on both sides to make sure that it's going to stay in. When the pin is in, you should not be able to move the two pieces apart in any way, but when you take it out, they should come apart easily. The front sling mount is a piece that looks like this. It is layered, and it will attach to the barrel shroud right between those two holes. Be sure to use a lot of glue if you want this to be strong. At this point, you're done with the barrel shroud and the barrel of the gun. And that's the end of part 2. This is Magicalamazing, signing off till next time. See y'all later.